West Virginia picks up a huge win over the Oklahoma Sooners this past weekend, and in the process, did they find the next star quarterback for the West Virginia Mountaineers? Many seem to think so. Some even think he might be the next Pat White. What is up, college sports fans, fellow members of Mountaineer Nation? This is Coos, and welcome into another edition of Coos' Corner. On tap in this episode, we're talking about West Virginia's win over Oklahoma. We're talking about the performance of Garrett Greene, how Neal Brown will proceed forward at the quarterback position. And for this episode, ladies and gentlemen, I've brought on a special guest to help me talk about this. As well, I'll let him chime in on the breaking news about Shane Lyons getting the axe at West Virginia. Bring on my good friend, Clark Johnson.
Hey, what's up, man? Hey, man. I'm Clark Johnson. A lot of people know me from the Voice of Morgantown. I know a lot of people don't like it. A lot of people probably don't like me, but it's here I am, man. Here I am. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Yeah, Clark writes for the Voice of Morgantown, and he writes some really good stuff, guys. And I recommend you check out some of his work. I'll leave a link to his latest article in the description box. And you also do a podcast, is that right?
I do. We do 3 or 4 and more. We're just now getting it started up though, so we've only got one episode out.
I got you. Okay, I'll link to that as well, so you guys go check him and his friends out over there at 3 or 4 and more podcast, and check out his work at the Voice of Morgantown. Let's dig into the show. Let's hit on the game, the Oklahoma game. What's your first initial thoughts now that you've had a couple of days to think about it?
It's a good win. It's fine, good to finally beat them. But at the same time, you sit there and you think, well, this Oklahoma team's really bad. So I mean, while it's good to beat them before they go to the SEC. I mean, who did we really beat? Did we beat Oklahoma, or did we beat some kind of off-brand of Oklahoma? You know what I mean? Like this just isn't your typical Oklahoma team. I mean, they're sitting at 5-5. This is their worst season in 24 years or something like that. 24, 26 years. I mean, while it's a good win, it's good to get the victory, but I mean, at the same time, you have to kind of sit back and look at it like this isn't a good Oklahoma team.
Right. Yeah.
But I mean, it was good to finally get that off our back though. That was the only Big 12 member we hadn't beaten. It was good just to beat them. I was happy. I'm sure everybody else was happy.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I enjoyed the win. I'm still enjoying the win. I'm glad we won the game. I think any win's a good win, right? Especially when you beat your nemesis, a team that's been a nemesis like Oklahoma. But at the same time, I also understand, it's not the same Oklahoma team we've played in the past. But we can't, I try to focus on the positives, especially on Saturday. But to me, I mean, let's talk about the defense real quick. West Virginia's defense in that game. To me, they played a bend don't break defense, which is what they've been doing all year, really.
Mm-hmm.
They did just enough to win the game. They gave up some big yards on the ground. I think Garrett Greene ran for like 211 yards or something like that. But at the same time, our defense held them to 1 of 11 on third down conversions, which I thought was critical in the game. They stepped up and played in big moments. What did you think about the defensive performance?
I thought that they're why we won the game, honestly.
Yeah.
Because I mean, Oklahoma, I mean, even though they're down this year, I mean, they still have good offense. They still have good skill players. Like you said, Eric Gray. They had Mims on the outside. Mims dropped 2 touchdown passes.
I know.
Or he dropped the one. He dropped the one long one, and then I think he caught one, didn't he? And then it got called back with the interference. Was that Mims?
Yeah, something like that.
It was.
I don't remember, but yeah. But I know he dropped the one where he was wide open down the seam.
Yeah, he was wide open. But yeah, the defense showed up. I mean, it's about time because I mean they've just been gashed all year, and they showed up in the most important moment though.
Yeah.
Oklahoma haven't beat them in we've been in the Big 12 now 10 years. I mean, if there was ever a time for them to show up, it was Saturday, and they did, and that's credit to Jordan Leslie.
Yeah, and I made a comment on a live stream, the post game live stream I did with guys over country as a webcast, and I said, to me, the defense, even though they're still not a great defense, they've gotten better the last 3 weeks, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen some improvement out of these guys. I mean, they're stepping up and making some plays when they need to. Yes, they're still getting burned a little bit, but you know what? From where they were beginning of the season to where they are now, to me, is a huge improvement. And I think they're, like you said, I think that's kudos to Jordan Leslie and his staff for getting these guys better. I've criticized them at times because the bad performances early on, but I'm also feel like it's fair to give him credit where it's due. Real quick, I want to give a shout out to the guys up front. Sean Martin, a kid who's local to us here in Southern West Virginia, had 2 sacks on the day. And then you got Dante Steele had another big day with a sack. Both those guys had 3 tackles as well. So big days for them. To me, they were. And then Jasir Cox had arguably his best day as a Mountaineer with 12 tackles and a tackle for loss. He was all over the field on Saturday. I thought he had a good game too. Anybody that stands out to you on defense?
Anybody stands out to me on defense? I just kind of piggyback off your guys, the guys up front, because I mean, like you said, Sean Martin did have a big game. He played well. Honestly, I kind of want to, I mean, even though they blew a couple coverages, the secondary, I mean, they held Oklahoma to under 200 yards passing.
Yeah.
Oklahoma may relied more on the running game, but I mean, other than Towson and I think Grant Wells even had over 200 yards on us. But I mean, the secondary, they didn't. They might have got burnt, but they didn't get burnt. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So they held the run.
Like I said, bend but don't break.
Yeah, they bent, but they didn't break.
Yeah, I think that's a good mention there. Malachi Ruffin played a pretty good game, I thought.
Mm-hmm. He's really coming on. I like Ruffin.
Absolutely. Kid was a walk-on to start his career, and to me, he made a couple big plays in that game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the one he got hit in the back of the helmet, and some people criticized him for not catching it. But, man, had he not been in the right position, the ball doesn't hit him in the head. Would you rather hit him in the head or hit the receiver in the hands for a touchdown?
Exactly.
That's the way I look
hit
at
him
it.
in the head.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That means he was in the right place. Now, could he have turned around and caught it? Yeah, and I'm sure they'll talk about that in film session. But at the same time, he also was there in position to make a play.
Mm-hmm.
Now, special teams want to touch on. Obviously, we got to give Casey Legg some shout-outs. Guys made 2 game-winning field goals this year. He's 13 for 13 on the year on field goals. Just a great year so far. And then Oliver Straw had another great game punting.
He actually just got named Big 12 Special Teams Player of the Week.
Awesome.
And
I didn't even know that.
Garrett Greene got Offensive Player of the Week.
Awesome. See, I didn't even know that. I've been so busy between my day job and trying to keep up with the breaking news, which we'll talk about later. I haven't even had a chance to see that yet. But so yeah, special teams, and then Sam, the big fake punt. Sam James did well on the fake punt, getting those yards.
Mm-hmm.
They had a couple nice returns in the kick return game. So kudos to our special teams. I thought they stepped up big. But real quick, now let's get to the part everybody wants to talk about. Let's talk about the offense and Garrett Greene. Sam James had 3 big catches, had 3 catches for 90 yards. He had a good day. But other than that, and of course, Ford Wheaton and Prather had some catches too. But other than that, the big story of the day really was Garrett Greene. So I just want you to start out and tell me your thoughts about Garrett Greene and his performance on Saturday.
He showed up when we needed him. It's about time he finally got his chance to shine. I mean, it was just a special performance. It was just he came in, he sparked the offense, he sparked the entire team. Because they're at the first. Daniels is a good quarterback, but he wasn't getting it done Saturday.
Yeah.
And it seemed like it was going to be another one of those games. Like, oh man, we're going to get behind early, not be able to catch up. They're not going to put Greene in until it's too late. But no, they threw him in there at the perfect time. And he has something special about him. He really does. He rushed for over 100 yards, passed for over 100 yards. And I know a lot of people don't, haven't really talked about it, but that touchdown drive at the end of the half was huge.
Absolutely.
You go in down 10-0. I'd rather go in down 12-6 than 10-0.
Right.
It should have been 10-7. But yeah, that was huge. He's got something special about him. As far as honestly, I think he should start the last 2 games. Will he? I don't know. You know how Neal Brown handles quarterbacks, but
exactly.
He should. I think it's his turn. I think he needs to be given a shot. He should have been given a shot last year. But
yeah,
absolutely. His attitude, his skill set. There's something special about this guy, and I want to see him in a full game situation.
Yeah, same here. How will he do when a team has a week to prepare for him? Because Oklahoma probably did not prepare for him to play quarterback,
mm-hmm.
So he sort of caught him off guard a little bit potentially. Where Kansas State is going to be expecting him to at least play, if not start. So, like you, I want to see how can he do when a defense. I still think he's an X factor that we don't have with JT back there, and I still think he has opportunity to do some damage. But
It's hard to sack him.
absolutely, it is.
That's one thing I like about him is like those defensive linemen aren't going to catch him.
Right. Yeah, he's so fast.
I mean, that's huge. That's a big. Daggy didn't have that. Daniels obviously doesn't have that. Let's put someone back there that they can't touch. Let him scramble around, make some plays. I know that's a big criticism from Neal Brown about him is that he doesn't follow the script, but the script's not working. You change it up a little bit.
Yeah, and that's something I want to touch on. First, before I do that, though, I'm going to read off Greene's stats. He was 12 out of 22 passing, 6.3 yards per completion, 138 yards and a touchdown, a QBR rating of 95.4. That is phenomenal. I mean, I think it's a 1 through 100 rating system. So he rushed the ball 14 times for 119 yards, 8.5 yards per carry with 2 touchdowns. So 119 on the ground, 138 through the air. Really just put the team on his back when they needed him to. Brought a lot of energy, a lot of intensity, some leadership. And you talked about improvising and going off script. And I'm glad you mentioned that because that's what I think Neal Brown's. There's been a lot of talk on social media about why Neal Brown treats Garrett Greene, seemingly treats him differently than everybody else. Maybe he's more harsh on him. Here's my thought on that, okay? Then I'll get your opinion. Number one, the reason I think he's harder on Garrett Greene is this. I think, number one, Garrett Greene was the first commit Neal Brown had at West Virginia. He was recruiting him at Troy. When he announced he was going to West Virginia, Garrett Greene decided to go to West Virginia with him. So he is a Neal Brown guy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Garrett Greene is his guy. He's probably been recruiting him since he was in high school. So he's probably known Greene and his family for 7, 8, 9 years now.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a fair statement?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So, in my opinion, I coach a girls' basketball team, and I've seen this, and I've watched my own kids come up and play sports through school, through the middle school level. And I've seen kids play at the high school level. I've witnessed it at the high school level at times with some of my friends and stuff when I played in high school. When you coach someone you're close to, you have a tendency to treat them a little differently because you're so much more comfortable with them. You know them better. You're more open with them. You may hold them to a higher standard at times if you know what their ability is. And I relate it to me, it's similar to coaching your own kid. If you notice a lot of times when parents coach their own kids in sports, they might be harder on their kid than they are. Now, that's probably not – is that the right way to do it? Probably not, but it's just human nature, in my opinion. And if he's known Garrett that long, I mean, heck, he's probably almost like a son to him, right? And these coaches get really close to these players especially the ones they recruit for a long period of time. So he's probably so comfortable with Garrett. He's very open. He's very honest about him. And he's probably not saying anything to us. He's not saying to Garrett in a private meeting too. You know what I'm saying? Right. So I think we as fans are looking at it from our perspective. But if you look at it from their perspective, Garrett probably is okay with the way Neal treats him because they're tight like that. Mm-hmm. That's just my theory on it. Okay. So I don't necessarily think he's too hard on Garrett. And as far as the improvisation goes, here's my thoughts on that. I think that Garrett, when Neal is extremely detail oriented, I think we all know that by now. He's very analytical. He uses analytics and numbers to make almost every decision, sometimes to a fault, I think. And I've heard some of the other West Virginia media people talk about how detail oriented he is. And I think he is so detail oriented that he wants the plays to be ran exactly the way exactly the way they're drew up, right? And he's a little bit obsessive about his detail. And he probably gets mad when that doesn't. I used to work for a guy like that. If you didn't do things exactly the way he wanted it done, it drove him nuts. Mm-hmm. And I think that's kind of how Neal is. I kind of see that in him a little bit. So even though Garrett might go make a play, he doesn't do it the way Neal scripts it up or writes it up. And personally, I think Neal needs to get over that a little bit because this is football, man. And sometimes guys are gamers. And some guys just know how to go out and make plays. I remember when Clint Trickett was here, and I'll say this, and I'll give you your few minutes to talk. But I remember when Clint Trickett was here, and we were having a bad year. Coach Holgerson was going back and forth between Trickett and Poor Childress, and who else was it that year?
Paul Millard.
Paul Millard.
Mhm.
And he couldn't pick a starter. He was given, no guy was separating himself. They were all having poor performances, and of course Strickett was brand new to the team. He didn't even know the playbook yet, really.
He also hurt his shoulder that year too.
Yeah, but he threw him in, and he played good. And they ended up beating a ranked Oklahoma State team that year. And when they asked Holgerson about it, he's like, Clint don't really know what he's doing out there yet, but the kid just knows how to play football, and he just makes plays.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, and I think that's kind of how Garrett Greene is right now. Even if he might make some mistakes, and I'm not saying he don't know the playbook, but I'm just using that as a reference point. Yes, he might make more mistakes because he's not as comfortable yet being out there. But even when he makes mistakes, he makes a play. Like the one time he turned the wrong direction to make a handoff. He ended up with a big gain on that play because it was a busted play, and he just took off. He's a gamer, man. He just knows how to play ball. And I think Neal Brown needs to let go of that obsession to detail that he has a little bit and just let the kid go play. And if there's anything that holds him back from starting Garrett Greene on Saturday, I think that'll be it. That'll be it because Garrett doesn't run the plays exactly the way he's supposed to all the time.
Mm-hmm.
That's my spiel on it. That's my soapbox. I'll let you have the floor.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the way Neal Brown treats him, I get that. I get that Garrett's probably comfortable with it because, Garrett's had every opportunity to leave. What's he been here 3 years, and he's just now getting extended playing time. Anybody else would have left. So, I think that shows a lot about his character and his attitude,
Absolutely.
It's not all about him, it's about the team. As far as like the way he treats him, you saw it too. Daggy was out there making all kinds of mistakes. Daggy just wasn't playing well. He might have been going by script, but it wasn't working, So why? Obviously he was close with the Daggy family, so why didn't he criticize Daggy?
Good point.
In his press
point.
conferences. So maybe they weren't that close. Maybe I don't know. I kind of get that argument, but at the same time, I'm kind of like, supposedly you're close with the Daggy family too. So why don't you criticize him too? Because it wasn't working. There were times it just was not working.
Yeah, I agree with it.
I remember the Oklahoma State game. It just seemed like every time that man's dropped back pass, he was getting sacked. He couldn't outrun the defensive line. So why not put someone back there that could have?
Yeah.
But that's a point of water under the bridge. That's last year. But I don't know, man. I don't know. I get the whole, you want to go by your script and stuff, but Neal Brown's coaching for his job too. And we're going to talk about it a little later. Shane Lyons lost his job today.
Right.
That's his strongest advocate. So if he wants to make a strong impression, put a gamer out there. What do you have to lose, man?
Hey, man, I agree with that.
You're 21 and 24. Put him out there.
Yeah.
See what he can do. Will he? I don't know. At this point, we've watched Neal Brown for 4 seasons now, and the only time he's ever really pulled a quarterback was Austin Kendall. And so I don't know what to expect.
Exactly. Good point.
But anyone with 2 eyes and a fully functional brain can see that Garrett Greene should get the opportunity to start this weekend. I hate to say it like that. I hate to put it bluntly, but
no, I agree with you, man. I agree with you, and I'm hoping he does that, and we can all stop criticizing him for it. But I just until he actually does it, I don't know that I believe it. But you made a great point about Daggy being his guy too. I had not thought about it from that perspective, so that kind of blows my argument out of the water then, in my opinion, because he didn't criticize Daggy much at all last year.
I can't remember one time he criticized Daggy.
And he's only criticized JT sparingly. Like he criticized him a little bit after the Iowa State game, or maybe it was the Texas Tech game. I can't remember which game it was.
Either one, it was probably warranted. Those were miserable games.
He criticized, but it was very minimal. Like he didn't. The only other thing I can think of as to why Neal does that, and maybe treats him differently, would be quarterback is a very mental position as far as you don't want to mess with a guy's confidence or a guy's psyche. So maybe he didn't want to, but what I'm saying, he didn't want to mess up their confidence if he does need him again. But he doesn't seem to care to do that with Garrett though, right? So I don't know, man. I just it's a valid point. It's a valid argument. Now he did give Garrett some kudos after the Iowa State game on how well he played at the end of that game. So So I will give him credit for that one. But a lot of people thought he should have gave him more credit for the Saturday game. Like I said, maybe he expects that from Garrett, because he knows how good Garrett can be. But he also didn't fail to mention he made some mistakes. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know, man. It's a fair argument, and I don't know the answer. I've heard some scuttlebutt that Neal doesn't treat all of his players the same.
I've heard that.
And maybe that's part of the and that's even part of the reason some guys leave the team, that he's not fair in the way he treats people. But that's there again, it's rumor, and I don't, I'm not in the room, I'm not in the locker room, so I don't, I can't say that for a fact.
I mean, I've met Neal Brown one time. I'm not going to, I've heard that too. But he was nice when I met him, so I'm not.
Yeah, same with me. I met him. It was for a brief minute. Shook his hand at a coach's caravan event. Met him, shook his hand. He was nice to me, but it was a very minimal. It was and everybody I've talked to that's met him seems to like him. So I think he's a nice guy. So like I said, I'm not going to try to speculate, but I have heard scuttlebutt that he's not. But at the same time, a good coach doesn't treat every player the same. Some players you can be harder on some guys than you can others. It depends on how the guys are wired. And a good coach knows that, and maybe that's the case here. Maybe he knows Garrett can handle it, so he's hard on Garrett. I don't know. I don't know, like I said, and I'm not going to try to speculate that. But let's talk real quick about what we. But I think we both agree Garrett Greene should get to start Saturday. Is that?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, Willie.
Right.
I don't know. That's what I don't think Neal's. We're not going to know till first snap. I don't think Neal's going to say anything this week.
Oh, he's actually said he wouldn't. He said even if we make the decision, I'm not going to say it publicly. So which to me is just, you don't think Kansas State's coaching staff's smart enough to figure it out? They're going to prepare for both guys anyway.
Oh yeah, they know what they're doing over there. Chris Kleiman's a national champion in the FCS. He can.
So
he knows.
I don't know. Sometimes I think Neal goes a little too far with the coach speak. But anyway, let's move on to the topic of the day, and that is Shane Lyons being out as AD. Me and you were talking a little bit. First off, what are your thoughts on it? Expected, unexpected, good, bad? What's your thoughts?
Honestly, I'm indifferent. I mean, I didn't think he was the greatest ever. I didn't think he was the worst ever. I think what kind of did him in was that extension back in, was it 2021 he extended, Neal?
2020.
2020.
Well, it was after the 2020 season.
Yeah.
So I guess it would have been the year 2021, yeah.
I remember it was on my birthday, so it was on my 23rd birthday he extended him. I thought that was the greatest thing ever. I thought, because, we're coming off that bowl win, and I'm thinking, this is great. Here 2 years later, I'm like, well, don't know about that. But as far as Shane Lyons, I'm indifferent. I mean, we can find someone better. I hate to say it like that, but he hadn't really done anything to blow me out of the water. I mean, Neal Brown seemed like a good hire at the time, but at the same time, you look at the football program right now, it's in shambles. And West Virginia is primarily a football school.
Right.
And, Bob Huggins isn't his guy. Like, we have a good basketball team, but that's not his guy. Neal Brown was his guy. Neal Brown was his decision. It was his decision to give him that extension with the huge buyout. I mean, so, it was coming, it was coming. Especially what is he since the extension? Is he 10 and 13 since he got extended or something like that?
Something like that. Yeah, I don't remember the exact number. It's not good though.
No, so I mean it was coming, and I mean I don't have anything against Shane Lyons. I mean he's not, it's just is what it is. I mean he's not like someone that everybody in West Virginia loved. He's not. There's someone everybody in West Virginia hated. He was just kind of there, Coming from Alabama, you expected better, especially for the football program. But we got to get someone that knows, that has connections, and can get some people in here that get this thing turned around in a hurry.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. I agree with you. Yeah, and I wasn't shocked by it because I had a feeling it was coming. Pete Thamel reported on Saturday during game day that word is that both Shane Lyons and Neal Brown were both in limbo here. Could possibly both lose their jobs, and then I had heard through some sources of mine that it was probably coming, that Shane would probably be the one to go first. I didn't share that because I didn't know how accurate it was, and so I just kept it to myself. But I you kind of saw the writing on the wall. The fan base was not happy about the extension. The football team was in shambles, like you said, and apparently there's been a lot of other people behind the scenes that the fan probably don't know about that have left potentially because of Shane, some staff members and stuff like that. So
Mhm.
I think from looking at it, and of course the people at the university know that the leadership they know about all that behind the scenes stuff too, and I'm sure that probably played a role in it. And then this football deal was probably the last straw, so to speak, for them. And
Mhm.
so I think it was the right. I hate to see anybody ever lose a job. It's not good for him or his family, But at the same time, for the betterment of the program, athletic program, I think it was probably the right move.
Mhm.
There's been as far as candidates go, uh, I've seen a lot of rumors. And I'll do a whole video on this, and kind of go into
Mhm.
more detail. But you're hearing names thrown out like Rob Mullins, the Oregon AD.
Mhm.
You're hearing Kelly Zinn, our former associate AD. You're hearing Whit Babcock, the AD at Virginia Tech. There's all kinds of names being floated out there. There's a few people
Mhm.
that even want Bob Huggins to be the AD.
Yeah, I've heard Oliver Luck's name thrown out there too.
Oliver Luck, yeah. So it's there's a lot of for me, I've seen this is all social media stuff. So I'm not saying I got any sources on this stuff, but it's just what I've seen. Some of what the fans are wanting to happen, so to speak, but or that might possibly happen. But yeah, that's just the names I've heard thrown out there. But I don't know if any of those are. When I dig into this for my video, I'll probably have a better feel for who's the best candidate.
Mhm.
But I haven't had a chance to do that yet. But just initially off the top of your head, do you have anybody in your head that you'd like to see get an interview for the job?
Interview for the athletic director job. I mean, not right off the top of my head. I wouldn't mind see Oliver Luck come back.
Yeah,
Honestly, I'd like him to come back. Kelly Zinn, I've heard a lot of good about Kelly Zinn. Whit Babcock, no, I do not want Whit Babcock. Uh, Bob Huggins, that one makes absolutely no sense. I know people in West Virginia love him, but he has no experience at that level of, I guess athletics, right? So that one's no. Um, but if I had anyone I want to see get an interview, I'd like to see Oliver Luck. I mean,
yeah,
I know he got us into the Big 12, but he got us out of a mess in the Big East too.
yeah, yeah. And that would
Um,
be interesting to see if he'd even want it because I think I'm assuming he's retired or I know he's doing his stuff with Country Roads Trust. I'm not sure if he's doing anything else behind the scenes. I mean, he just got that big settlement from Vince McMahon where he got fired from the XFL, so he's probably okay financially right now. I think it was tens, like 20 some million or some crazy number like that, but
mhm,
something I don't remember the exact number. It was a lot. It was in the million, tens of millions.
mhm.
So he's probably doing okay financially, but maybe he doesn't want to deal with it. I think he's in his 60s now, so he's probably enjoying life. I would guess,
Mhm.
but I wouldn't necessarily hate it if he came back. I'm just not sure I'm not sure if he and Gordon Gee are on the same page because you know Luck supposedly left on his own, but who knows if Gee being hired had anything to do with that? I don't know
Right,
because
right.
Gee wasn't the president that hired him. I mean, yeah, so that's you never know what that dynamic is there. But for that being said, I mean, as a fan and what we were able to do under his watch, I don't really, I wouldn't have an issue with it.
Mm-mm. No, I mean the whole Bill Stewart and head coaching waiting thing with Dana was kind of a mess. I didn't
It was,
understand that. I didn't like that. I mean, if he had one mistake, I think it was that. But I mean, we
yeah,
had a pretty good football program under him.
yeah, I agree with that. That was botched, but I think after that, once Dana got in the position and things started rolling, Dana wasn't he didn't take our program to new heights or anything, but he was not bad. Uh,
Mm-mm.
so it ended up being a decent hire for Oliver, and then so I don't think it was, and we were at least in the conversation for the Big 12 championship a couple different times. So it's a lot better, but we were in a lot better shape then than we are now. Let's put it that way.
No. What do you think about Bob Huggins though?
Nah, I don't like it. Bob Huggins is a great look. He's a great ambassador for West Virginia. He's a very intelligent guy. I mean, he was I think he was a magna cum laude graduate or whatever at WVU. Very smart guy, obviously. Great
Mm-hmm.
coach, knows the game, and he would probably be great at the political side of it potentially because he knows so many people. But at the same time, number one, I think he would hate it because I don't think he would enjoy that part of the job.
Mm-hmm.
And two, I mean, what experience does he have uh, fundraising? Well, he could do the fundraising part of it now. because he's great at fundraising. But the actual management side of it, behind the scenes, managing a budget and doing all that stuff. What experience does he have there? I don't think he does,
Mm-mm.
to my knowledge.
No.
Maybe I'm wrong on that. And I'm not saying he couldn't do the job. Plus, Bob Huggins is 69. Why would he want to take that on at this point in his career?
Right.
Plus,
I
it
mean,
would be
he's got the talent of his coaching career. I mean, what?
yeah.
Like, I'm sure AD would be a lot more stressful than coaching 14
I would think
minutes,
so.
like people my age, like
Yeah,
be a lot more stressful.
yeah. I don't like that. I don't like it. I love Bob Huggins, but I don't like him as the AD. I just don't think that was. I think that would be to me, that would almost remind me of the move when they hired Bill Stewart to be the football coach. I think it would be based on pure emotion and likability versus qualifications for the job, if that makes sense.
Right. I like the Rob Mullins hire you meant. Rob Mullins, right? Rob
Yeah.
Mullins. Yeah, Rob Mullins from Oregon. I like that one. I had really heard that name thrown out there. I like
and
that.
And for people who don't know, Rob Mullins is a West Virginia graduate. He's been the AD at Oregon, I think, for like 11 years or so.
Mm-hmm.
So, would he want to come back home? Would he want to leave that Phil Knight money in Oregon to come back to West Virginia? Who knows? But I think they should at least give him a phone call.
Right.
At the very least, right?
Yeah, at least talk to the man. I mean, we get us some flashy uniforms and a good coach.
Yeah, I don't know about the flashy uniforms part.
I mean, we can at least spice it up a little bit. Right?
Well, I don't know. We do have Nike as our brand, right? So
right, but then again, the Nike guy was an Oregon grad, right? So that's why they get all their.
Yeah, he's their big money. I mean, he's their big donor out there. We don't have. Well, I don't know. We've got a pretty big donor of our own. He's not as well known, but
right.
I don't know if he's got Phil Knight money, but he's got money.
Right. I mean, as far as I'll just talk about the uniforms. I see people want like black uniforms and these gray uniforms. I hate them. Like,
dude, why? I love them.
The gray's okay if you have the blue pants with them, but I don't like the full gray. I don't know. I don't like the way they look. I don't know.
But I'm a gray guy. I mean, look at the color of my wall behind me. Right. I love gray, man. Gray's my favorite color.
I'm wearing a gray sweatshirt. So
I know, but I see what you're saying. But no, I personally, and I know a lot of people are more traditional and like the traditional colors, and that's cool. But I love the grays. I love the black ones we did. I think they're bringing the black back. I think they're bringing the black basketball uniforms back. I saw a hint at that on Twitter. I love that idea.
Mm-hmm.
I thought they looked sharp. I just like changing things up now. I'm not all for doing what Maryland does and getting these weird checkerboard colors and stuff.
Yeah,
but
we don't need the state flag on our helmet.
Nah, I don't want the state flag on the helmet. I like the state logo.
Occasionally.
Yeah,
outline's fine.
Flag, not for every game though. I think the Flying WV is too valuable of a brand to not use it. But but you see my point. I do like changing. I love the country road uniforms. I thought those were absolutely sharp.
Only thing about them on the maps, they missed the potholes.
Yeah, they did. They did miss the potholes. Yeah. That would take a really good artist to get that on there, wouldn't it?
Oh yeah. I like how they wore them more than once though. Like I thought it was going to be a one and done thing. Now they wore them 3 times.
Yeah, they wore them for Tech, and then they wore them again for
Texas Tech.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Considering they lost two out of those 3, they might need to put them on the shelf.
Yeah, we beat Virginia Tech, and Virginia Tech's awful.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Nah, it's not. I'm sure it's not about what uniform you wear, but they do look sharp. I got to tell you that it's probably my favorite uniform they've ever had. To be honest.
Mm-hmm. I like the ones they had for UBB back in was it 2010? Mm-hmm. Was it 2010 that UBB accident happened? They played Pitt in them.
Oh, the coal mining uniform. Yeah.
Yeah.
I forget what they called them, but yeah.
No, those were sweet. Like I wish they'd do something like that again.
Yeah, I do too. That would be neat. I love those. I forget what they were called. I'm losing.
The Nike Pro Combat.
Nike Pro Combat uniform. Yeah, that was it.
Yeah.
Yep. I love those uniforms.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway,
something like that again. But who knows if they will? I'm sure they'll spice it up here again. Like
they will.
Uniforms are big in recruiting now. So I don't know how we got off on uniforms. What were we talking about? Oregon.
We was talking about Oregon. You can't talk about Oregon and not bringing up uniforms, Clark. Can you?
Do what?
You can't talk about Oregon and not talk about uniforms, right?
Right. I mean, they have like so many. I can't even tell you how many combinations that team has. Like it's ridiculous.
But you know why though? That's become what they're known for.
Mhm.
They've done and they've got a great job using that to their advantage, man. I mean,
Yeah. I'm just expecting them any time to come out in an average Joe's Gym's uniform, from dodgeball or
there
something
you
like
go.
that, something
Hey, I'd be
crazy.
all for it. I
Right.
love it. If you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball.
Right. Dodge a wrench,
All
you
right.
can dodge a tackle.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
You can find Clark on Twitter at James Clark 3 _ at _ James Clark 3 _ So there's an underscore at the beginning and the end.
Mhm.
And then you can find me at Coos 206. You can find me on Instagram at Coos' Corner 206, on Facebook page at Coos' Corner. Once again, find Clark on his podcast. Go ahead. What was it called again, Clark?
304 and more. We're just
304.
now getting it started. We only got one out, so the Facebook page is actually One Voice Podcast, but we got to do some stuff with Facebook to get it changed over.
Okay.
Because we were going to do One Voice of Motown. We like 304 and more better though, so it's just last second decision.
I got you. Okay. So everybody look Clark up on his podcast and obviously, like I said, he does some writing for Voice of Morgantown as well. Writes some really good articles, and I recommend you give it a read, man. So, anyway, with that being said, Clark, you got any parting words?
I just hope we make a bowl game. That's it. Do I think we will? Probably not. But I don't know. I'm interested to see where this goes. I mean, Neal Brown experiment didn't work, so I'm interested. I've been a West Virginia football fan since I was 9 years old. It just breaks my heart seeing it in this shape, and I want nothing but the best for it.
All right. Yeah. Let me ask you a quick question. I just thought about it while you were talking. If West Virginia happens to win out and make a bowl game and win our bowl game, do you think Neal should stay? Let's just keep him.
Do I think he should?
Do you think they should keep him if we win out and win a bowl game?
I'll say yes. I think he earned it at that point.
What if we went out and lose the bowl game? Finish 6 and 7.
No.
Okay.
No. Well, see, this is such a. I don't know. You got to commit to one or the other. I mean, I'll just say no to both now. I can't say yes to one and no. I'll say no because you've had 4 years to do something, you haven't done it. So I'll say no to both.
I think most of the fan base is kind of on board with that because they're like, 6 and 6 or 6 and 7 is not a climb. Now, if you win your 7 and 6, maybe you could say that's a climb, but I don't know. Maybe not. I don't know.
But his advocate's gone. Shane Lyons
Right.
is gone.
Yeah.
So this might be I can't think of the word they call it, but it might just be there's no end to the argument,
And I'm like you got to commit because if you wait till after a bowl game to make the decision, you've already lost out on all the good coaches because everybody else has already hired their coach for next year.
Well, we thought that with Neal Brown though. Neal Brown landed on us.
Right. And everybody thought that was a great hire, but I don't know. But it ended up obviously not being. But heck, Neal Brown could end up going somewhere else and being a very successful coach.
Yeah, he could probably be doubting us. Yeah.
Just for whatever reason, he's not been a fit here yet, and I don't know why.
Not a good fit.
It's just not worked. It's not worked. His way of coaching is just not worked with at WVU for whatever reason.
I'll stop talking after this, but here's what I think. I think that him and Dana were such two different coaches, two different cultures. Ending Dana's just like that, and then going right into this new culture. I just think it was a culture shock. I think that's why you saw players leave. That's why you saw parents mad on Twitter. I think it was too much of a culture shock to go a complete 180 from the kind of coach you got. Like Dana, you got Dana over here hacking up loogies and smashing Red Bulls, and you got Neal Brown over here yelling at people for not tucking in their shirt. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
I think
that's a great Clark. That's a great point, and I've said the same thing. And if you do that, here's the thing: as a fan base, if you make that kind of a culture change, can you really change it in 3 years, 4 years? Think about that.
Yeah, it's.
But in today's time, you have to.
Yeah.
With the transfer portal now, you should be able to turn a program around in this length of time.
Mm-hmm.
Because if the guys you've got now aren't buying in, which is supposedly what I heard was happening, a lot of the guys were leaving because they weren't, or were asked to leave because they weren't buying into the culture. Well, then you got to bring guys in that are as good or better than them, and that didn't happen. They brought in guys.
It's a results-based business. It's
Exactly.
a result-based business, and there's not results right now.
Because
That's what it is.
there are still a few people hanging on to the Neal Brown side. They are saying, yeah, but he hasn't had enough time yet because of that culture change and because of what Dana left him and because of the transfer portal. Well, I look at the transfer portal from the opposite angle. Yes, the transfer portal hurt us, but at the same time, it can also help you if you use it right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He hasn't used it right. And that's been one of his biggest failures. He has recruited well out of the high school level, but he's not done well in the portal. Mm-mm. Almost every player he's gotten from the portal, with a couple of exceptions, have not worked.
Mm-mm. And they always seem to be like FCS players too. Have you noticed that? Like Alonzo Adai worked out, but then who else has he got from the portal?
Charles Woods is an FCS guy.
Charles Woods, he's worked out.
Yeah. Other than the injury, yeah.
But I mean, look at the other players. I mean, they're not FCS, but Daggy and Daniels didn't working out.
Kendall
didn't work out. I liked Austin Kendall. I think injuries kind of hindered him a little bit though.
Lynn J. Dixon from the Clemson deal.
Yeah, like that was a complete disaster. For whatever reason, he's just not getting the right players, and that's something Dana could do good, was get transfers in and let them. That was a lot of his team were transfers.
Yeah.
So It's today's college football. It's a mini NFL.
That's right. Yep.
Go out and get your players.
And I think Neal's still trying to kind of build teams the old-fashioned way, and maybe that's not going to work at West Virginia.
It might not work for anywhere ever again, though.
And maybe Dana realized that, because Dana was a little bit ahead of the curve on that as far as going to get transfers. He was kind of getting transfers before getting transfers was the cool thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And he got criticized for it a lot of times but if you look at the guys he's put in the NFL, almost a huge portion of those guys were transfers.
Mm-hmm.
David Seals, transfer.
David's, yeah, he
came here as a quarterback and then transferred out and transferred back.
Technically a transfer, though.
Yeah.
Will Greer transfer.
Yeah. But Will Greer was a transfer. Skylar Howard was a transfer from the JUCO level. David Long. No, not David Long. The guy from Oklahoma. We had a linebacker transfer in from Arizona. Wasn't that under Dana?
No, that was Tony Fields. That was under him.
Okay. I was under Neal Brown. That's right. But anyway,
Browns,
my point remains the same. There's been a lot of guys that Neal brought in, that Dana brought in, that were transfers that did well and are still playing in the NFL today.
Mm-hmm.
Most of them from either the JUCO level and even a couple Power 5 guys he brought in that did well, and that was his calling card. And people were criticizing because he couldn't recruit well at the high school level, but he didn't have to, because you know what I mean? He was able to recognize talent from the portal or from the JUCO level.
Mm-hmm.
Kevin White is a big one.
Oh yeah,
all three Whites came from JUCO.
Lackawanna, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you look at Dana. He didn't recruit well from the high school level, and he has the second most wins in WVU history.
Yeah.
Then you have Neal over here recruiting at a high level. What's the deal? I don't know. It's a mess.
Yeah. I think it all comes down to, and I was listening to a podcast the other day, and it was a former player that made this statement. I think it was not Pat White, Rasheed Marshall made this statement. He said, it ain't about it ain't just about how good the kid is when you get him. It's, can you develop him? And I think talent development is lacking a little bit at West Virginia right now. Just my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with you.
But,
they're just, they're not developing players. But.
Yeah. All right, Clark. Listen, man, I appreciate you coming on here.
Thank you for having me, man.
Yeah, man. It's been good. We'll have to do it again sometime. Everybody, don't forget to check Clark's workout. I'll link to it in the description box. And like always, Q Country Roads.
Let's go Mountaineers.